Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning on a Monday. This is different to be doing my little chat time on a Monday morning. So we'll see if it gives the added energy. I used to dread Monday mornings as an aside. This is the mood I'm in. I'm so scattered today. I used to dread Monday mornings. Even when I didn't have to get up and go to work, I still had that kind of weird energy. Like I felt like,
Mhm.
oh, this is the collective energy of Monday mornings. But
Right. From the ages, right? I totally get it.
exactly. So we're here on a Monday morning, really happy to welcome Margaret Ghielmetti, who is, oh, where do I even start? Author, storyteller. Of course, I think storyteller is always the most important job, whatever form it takes.
Mm.
So Margaret has written this amazing memoir called Bravish, a memoir of a recovering perfectionist, which I highly recommend. It's a page turner. And if you want to tell us a little about the book, that would be great. But Margaret also does a lot of spoken word. She has been a moth champion, I believe. Is that the title?
Well, for a
Impressive.
story slam, not for the grand slam, but for two story slams, which were big highlights of my storytelling career.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm really happy to chat with Margaret today. Now, last week, I chatted with Rachel Reynolds, who was here as a guest at Beach Glass Writers Residency. She was here with me all week. And Margaret came in one morning and spent some time with us. And we were able to talk about story structure, and we were helping Rachel kind of brainstorm ideas for what she wants to work on. And it was just super fun, right? In a nerdy
Super
way.
fun.
Like the more we talk about story, it's like, oh, this happened in your life, that fits there. And this is this, and this is that mirror moment. And here's the disorganizing event. And we're just completely geeking out on that, which was super fun.
It
So I
was
really
super
appreciate you
fun.
coming in last week and spending some time with us. And now we can take it a little bit further. So I just kind of wanted to ask you about, because when I think of you, I think about, you getting up on stage. I had the pleasure of seeing and hearing Margaret give I would say essay or just a short piece in front of the Chicago Writers Association crowd. And we were joking because she put the bar up here. It's like, oh, this is not her first rodeo. Her performance level was so high. And most writers are
Thank
like, mumble, mumble, mumble. I wrote something. I hope you care. She's just like, delivering this amazing piece. So that was
you.
really, really cool to see. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this week. So we'll have to plug that before we go.
Thanks.
But tell me about the idea of being brave. Not only, was this a topic of your memoir, and you can explain to us how that title came to be, but how do you take that same sense of bravery and courage into your writing? Because you have to be brave to put your personal stories on the page. I mean, I think was it Hemingway who said, just open a vein and
Yeah.
and lead onto the page, basically. Um, for any writing, but memoir especially. And then to not only have it on a page where someone is sitting there privately reading it, but then you get up in front of a crowd and you share these same stories where you have to be completely exposed. So that's next level. So just
Mm.
walk us through that. How do you reach
Mm.
that? How do you get that ability to be able to do that?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, thank you, Tammy, for having me. I am a big, big fan of yours. And I just was saying to Tammy, I really want to hire you to help me with my heroine's journey on my project I'm working on now, because I really value your wisdom so much. And yes, we were so geeking out in such a fun way. And I'm was delighted to be there and delighted to be here now. So thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. In terms of storytelling, I am grateful that storytelling came into my life at a time when I really wasn't expecting it. And it really filled a need for me. I started out by taking improv at Second City, the full year of improv, at a time in my life when I was caring for my parents at the end of their lives. And I needed something that wasn't pre-grieving them. I needed
Mm.
fun. And improv for me is just heaven. I just really, really live in that space. I love, love, love the yes and component of improv. And so once I'd finished a year of that, I was like, well, what else can I take? And Second City offered storytelling. And I thought, well, I'll try it. I love to try new things. And my first story I told was Patrick, my husband, and I have lived around the world on 4 different continents. And I told a story about being in a tower in India with a bunch of monkeys, pretty probably rabid monkeys. And at the end of the story, my storytelling teacher said, wow, you don't look like this, but now I'm going to be thinking of you like Indiana Jones. And I was like, okay, that hooked me. And I started to tell a lot of stories. And primarily, I told about my travels because people love to hear what goes wrong, in particular in travels. And I'm happy to share that. But I really saw that until I started to get vulnerable about my internal journeying, my emotions, the things that have impacted me, infertility, loss of my elderly parents and caretaking, surviving a marriage that's now over 30 years old, all sorts of stuff. That's when I could feel the audience's beating heart beating
Yeah.
with me. And that's why I do art. I want to connect and I want people to know they're not alone. There is help if they ask for it and accept it. And I like to laugh at myself because I think life is so hard sometimes and so funny. And this human condition, it's for me a great relief to laugh about it. So one thing I do know is, yes, I may bleed in the writing of a story, but I don't bleed on stage because I don't want the audience to worry about me. But I do believe that my vulnerability is what allows me to connect to an audience. I like to tell true stories. I don't like to pimp the story for
Yeah.
emotional effect. But then when I can feel it, and people oftentimes will approach me and say, thank you. No one has allowed me to even share about whatever they're going through because I was vulnerable. It doesn't feel vulnerable to me. It feels human. So it's not actually difficult for me. It feels like we're all in this human condition together. If I can share something that helps someone and makes them smile, then I'm happy.
Would you consider yourself brave?
Do I consider myself brave? What that part is not brave for me
Mm.
because my experience has been so connecting around that. That actually doesn't feel brave for me. The reason I chose the title Brave-ish is the journey of my life has been to go from being a very brave person to learning that I don't always have to be 100% brave.
Mm.
So the brave-ish for me is not growing into brave-ish. It's a little bit backing off of feeling I have to do it all perfectly yesterday by myself and
Yeah.
leaning into I get to be only ish and lean on other people and ask for help. So that's been the bigger struggle for me is asking for help and accepting help, feeling, learning I don't need to do it alone myself. That takes bravery for me sometimes. I mean, a small act for someone else. For me, going to the doctor is like normal for most people. And for me, it's like, no, you're going to be fine. I grew up with go outside and play until the street lights come on and don't come inside until if someone's limb is ripped off or someone's actively bleeding. So it takes for me bravery to ask for help and to be less overtly brave, if that makes sense.
So you're saying that we all have areas where we're more scared, feel more
Right.
vulnerable than in others. And for you, it
Yes.
sounds like the storytelling, you've quickly discovered the beauty of it, which is this connection that allows you to have with people. So
Right.
once you do experience that, that fear sort of falls away.
Right.
That I think that resonates for me because I think that's so true. And, with writing books, so often, people understandably are so scared to share certain things. Um, Only to find out when it comes out the things you were the most afraid about didn't maybe have that effect or didn't shock people the way you thought. Maybe other things do. You just have no way of predicting. But I think there is that sense of, wow, that made somebody feel something profound and they thanked me for it. And so what I was so afraid of actually became this bridge, this connection.
That's
That's
beautifully put.
beautiful.
Beautifully.
Was
When
there
I
any?
work with people, I try to remind people that I don't like to say this out loud because it sounds self-aggrandizing, but I do believe that any artist is giving a gift. So to me,
Yeah.
the gift is if I can give a gift where someone does, as I say, feel less alone, I know what my why is. So any hesitation I have goes away. I will say I don't share everything. I do tell people memoir and storytelling is
Yeah.
ideally not a vendetta. And I can tell how disappointed people are sometimes. It's not revenge fantasy. It's like people are, oh no, shoot, this is going to be great. So there are some things that are, for me, a relationship I was in for a long time. I don't share about that because that would feel, um, I would have a hard time not veering into revenge. And that's not a good reason to tell a story.
So in that case, it sounds like you choose to leave that out because it doesn't maybe serve the story. Um, we talked a little bit last week about the story becoming this entity, this sovereign entity that you serve, right? And the story will require certain things, and you have to kind of feed it what it needs to live, and then other things it will spit out, right? But was there anything that you chose not to put in because you were afraid, or did you push through and sort of apply that courageous, that outlook, like, no, if it's meaningful to the story, even if I'm afraid, even if I don't know how those people in my life are going to accept it, or if they will, the story needs to have it in. Was there anything like that you had to sort of sit with it and feel, talk yourself into including?
It was more, I would say for me, the things that to your point, decided to exclude. Those were hard because I do see it as, this is a Tammy quote. I mean, it's art. We're doing art. Memoir is art. It's not journalism. And so for me I wanted to tell a true story, but I do respect this art that it was hard for me to leave out some things. I don't ever want to be perceived as not um, being transparent and being true. But some things it felt more important, as you say, they weren't serving the story. So were there things that were hard to put in? Not so much. I mean, I'm also lucky that, excuse me, I've been presenting for a long time. And I always cite my first big presentation when I was 21 years old. And I worked for the Italian government. And this is back when there were slideshows. So I gave a slideshows at the Chicago Council on Foreign Relations. And 99 people in the audience stood up and applauded, which was very gratifying. But there was one elderly gentleman in the first row who did not stand up. He was audibly snoring. And I'll tell you that.
That's humbling.
But it was a gift at the age of 21 to realize, I'm not going to please all the people all the time. Let me do my thing. Let me be up there and try to give whatever I can and not worry. I'm actually really not concerned about how people receive it because it may not be for them.
Right.
So I don't get particularly attached to that. I try to give what I can as transparently as I can because that's the only way it works for me.
That's great. Well, tell us what you're working on now, and then also give us a plug for what you're going to be performing on Thursday.
Thank you. Well, I will be telling a story this Thursday at Secret World Books in Highland Park.
Okay.
And it's with someone who is calling this Scrappy Affirmations. It's about women of a certain age, which I'm really proud to say. I'm grateful to have gotten to be old enough that my hair is getting this color. And the
Yeah.
project that I'm working on is, in fact, regarding that. This woman talks about legacy, not resume. So I want to credit her for that, the Scrappy Affirmations guru. And that's the project that I'm working on now, to see if I can do another solo show or another memoir about looking at our lives. I'm 64, not so much at the external, what accomplishments might I have uh, accumulated, because I wasn't able to have children, so I can't point to that as an accomplishment. I quit my job to follow my husband's career around the world, so I don't really have that huge career. And I came upon the vehicle of merit badges for adults. So those of us who were scouts, I did love merit badges, and that's the story that I told at the Chicago Writers
Yeah.
Association conference. But I started to think, wait, what are the merit badges I've earned as an adult that are not so literal, not so much into the doing, but how we be in life, and what are our values, and have we lived according to our values? So, as you and I talked with your beautiful beach class residency, this heroine's journey of trying to make sense of, in this case, my own life. But of course, what I'm hoping is that it will give others an opportunity to look at their lives and say, gosh, here's my life. It's not what we necessarily expect it to be when we're children or even adults. And then it is. And I just was teaching memoir in a morning this week at a retirement community, or this past week, I guess, at a retirement community. And the joy I got out of seeing some women in their 80s who were thinking, I've done nothing. And to work
Oh.
with them to say, let's poke a little bit. I try not to be a bully. I'm really, really interested in looking at themes in people's lives, and to help them uncover how unique and beautiful their lives have been. I really do
Mm.
accord myself that same grace, because I can be very hard on myself for not having done X, Y, or Z. And that's the gift I want to give now, is to help all of us look at our lives and go, gosh, this is the life I've led. And also, we're still kicking. So, what do we want to do now?
Yeah, I love that. Oh, I love that. There's so many things in there that, we could talk more about. It just, yeah, feeling that sense of shifting from looking backward and sort of making, checks about, well, how did I do this, and how did I, and, how did I succeed or didn't I? And changing it into just what really matters to me, and
Exactly.
who cares what the outer world think. It's just, I mean, I think that's something as women, our age, it's just a natural reflection that we do at this time. It's also something as writers, I think, having a career as a creative professional or as a writer, I know I fall into this pit a lot. Like, oh, what does it matter? What does it matter? There are a million books in the world, especially with my memoir. When I wrote that, it's like, who cares about a divorce story? I mean, hopefully it's more than a divorce story, but you know what I mean? Like, ugh, yuck. So just that the constant doubt of like, what I do makes no difference. It's a little pebble in this vast ocean, and really it's easy to get stuck in that. Like, why on earth am I doing this? Sometimes it feels difficult. Other times, of course, it's wonderful. Mostly it's wonderful. But yeah, so I get that. I love that that's your project, and really, changing that viewpoint of let's celebrate these as accomplishments, these little badges we could, that we can wear and pin to our lapel. So
And I just like
yeah.
to say, you had asked me about bravish in terms of performing, which doesn't feel particularly brave for me. This does feel brave. This feels to me
Mhm.
much harder to actually,
Wow.
uh, there's so much conditioning around don't toot your own horn. And it's like, oh my gosh, a lot of old stories, a lot of old narratives. So to answer your earlier question, what feels brave to me is, will I be willing to reassess my life along the lines you just outlined? What has it really mattered? What matters to me on a bigger level? Though that to me feels much more challenging, because it
Mm.
it entails really combating some very, very
Very,
old
very old
messages.
messages. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Well, I will be following along with that journey, and can't wait to talk more about that some other time. But and also, I thought of another topic just as an aside, as you were talking about improv. Oh, this would be a great one because I'm very interested in how improv is yes and you follow that everything is agreement, and fiction is conflict, so everything is making it tough and you don't want to be in agreement. So I've taken some improv and I had a hard time getting that yes and because I'm like wired to be like conflict, this has to be harder on the character, and it was like yes and yes and yes, and so I thought that was really interesting. And I in my book, my novel that I finished last year, I have a scene where they go to an improv club and the character has to sort of get used to that yes and what happens to her sort of rigid personality in that context. So we'll have to have another talk sometime about
Yes,
how
please.
as a writer, how do you do the yes and over here, and then when you switch to conflict or switch to fiction or writing, it's like you want the conflict. So those are two different things, but
So true. I love that. That's for me. Another Tammy Leather moment, everyone. Where I'm like, that's a really good point.
another thing we can geek out about. Other people are probably like,
Exactly.
what are you talking
What?
about? Who cares? But we've already decided that we're going to do what we want, no matter
Right.
if anyone cares,
Exactly.
right? All
Exactly.
right. Well, I will let you go. Thank you so much, Margaret. This was
Thank
a
you,
really fun
Tammy.
way to start my week. And I am really looking forward to hearing you give your story again on Thursday at Secret World
World Books.
Bookstore. Yeah,
Yeah, so
Secret World
information is
Bookstore.
on their, yeah, it's on their website for anyone who's interested. And Gail Brandeis, the owner, co-owner of Secret World Books, is my teacher and currently with Memoir in a Year at Story Studio. And she'll be telling a
Oh,
story too. She's an amazing writer too. So another reason for people to consider coming. But thank you,
awesome.
Tammy. I really, really, I embrace you. I value you so
Oh,
much.
you too. Can't wait to see you later this week and have a great few days. We'll see you
You
soon.
too. Okay,
Thank
cheers.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.